I awoke with a similar reaction to last time. As my memories returned, I sat there alone with my thoughts. I have now lived 40 years that contain twice the realism and many more times the hardship than the 16 years of the now dull reality I live in. 56 years of experience. I felt old, exhausted from the pain I put myself through. But I had an evolved form of happiness from this vast sense of freedom I've obtained. I decided to live in reality for another 5 weeks. Not only did daily irritations lose nearly all meaning, but the painful processes of exercise was now something to enjoy. Peaceful reactions to harsh tones and inconveniences became easier than ever. Physical training did not hurt like it used to, and I was safely addicted to training. Nothing bothered me, and I became a highly evolved martial artist with a much healthier physique. I must now brace myself for my next simulation. I need to get the painful ones over with first. I passed out. I was born in a village with 2 parents and 4 siblings. We lived in a 1-bedroom house with no water or electricity. We lived in a savanna with sweltering summers and freezing winters. For 5 months, the average temperature would be 0 degrees Fahrenheit. The only month of spring would quickly warm up until the summer, which is also 5 months, averaging to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Then the only month of fall would quickly cool down. The whole family, including I, were always sick with something. Our organs always hurt, as well as movement. Every day, one of us had to pick up a 2-gallon cylinder to collect water from a gross river. One of us had to walk a painstaking 3 miles there and 3 miles back. One of us had to hunt for mammals or fish. They were always scarce and always hard to find and catch. We were always hungry, thirsty, sick, and hurt. The thin wooden walls offered little protection from the hot and cold temperatures, and we had no bedding. We had aches, strains, nausea, fevers, skeletal problems, dizziness, bloating, sores, blisters, coughs, asthma, discharge, fungus, itching, and bleeding from both ends daily. The place was infested with mosquitoes, flies, ants, roaches, and spiders. All of their bites hurt. I couldn't believe I didn't die before reaching age 18. Damn. By then, my siblings died one by one. My oldest brother was killed by a bear. My oldest sister collapsed outside on a summer noon and burned to death 2 hours later. My youngest brother collapsed on a winter night and slowly froze to death, and my youngest sister succumbed to a horrible illness. I cried in despair after each of their deaths, but I was also glad for them that they no longer suffer. However, I was also envious. One morning on my 19th birthday, I was walking home with 2 gallons of water. Only 1,000 feet away from home, I saw a group of soldiers drag my parents out of my house and shoot 'em dead. I hid behind a bush. I was enraged but glad to know that death was near. My mind screamed at me to run to them, to avenge my parents and or take a bullet of salvation. I couldn't make my body move. No amount of willpower I thought I built could get me to make a sound or movement, and I couldn't figure out why. I watched the group walk away. The figures became grains, then became specks, then faded beyond the bright blue horizon. I hated myself for my cowardice, and drowned in an abyss of loneliness. I drank the dirty water and searched for a new home. The new sense of self-hate and solitude made my physical pain flare up more than ever. Every step was agonizing. I didn't know why my worsened state couldn't kill me. Every town or village I encountered contained hostile people. They threw rocks and mud at me. They shouted scornful comments and profanities. After 1 year of this nomadic hell, I witnessed a soldier robbing and punching a young girl. Filled with rage and redemption, I ran to him and struck his face. He jumped back and aimed his pistol. 3 explosive shocks of pain hit my chest. I lied on the ground, losing my 5 senses. As everything around me faded to black, I had my first experience of happiness. I awoke, memories returned. I was overwhelmed with relief that it didn't really happen, but also damaged from the traumatic simulation. My odd traits, depression, codependency, and need for privacy was alienating to my mom. I began to fear my new ability and was freaked out at myself for putting myself through that. I needed to make another simulation to heal the self-inflicted psychological injury. After moving through my hesitation, I slept. I was born in a large house on a hill surrounded by beautiful masses of trees and mountains. There was no one other than I who dwelled there. I somehow naturally knew how to survive, navigate, meditate, exercise, and speak. I collected crystal clean water from a serene pond and collected fruit and veggies from the ever abundant and abundantly generous plants. The contrast of green fields and the ever blue-gray sea of clouds, always filled me with immense joy and awe. I lived with great prosperity and trained in martial arts daily. With the great nutrition in the food, my muscles healed after every sleep. My speed, strength, and precision doubled every month. At age 10, I began to long for learning what lies in and beyond the mountainous horizon. I locked the door behind me and jogged at 30 miles per hour through the forest path. I climbed and jumped toward the mountain peak. I settled on the highest cliff and observed every direction. My house appeared to be a purple sand speck in the metropolis of green and brown. Facing the opposite way, I was astounded to see a great white ascension rise above the clouds. A rugged trail of rocky zigzags led to the sea of rising snow. Between 6-hour rests, it took me 54 hours of brisk, strenuous traveling to reach the snowy mountain, and 36 more hours of climbing to reach the top. 20 miles above the massive bluish-gray field revealed a fiery dusk glowing across the dotted sky. I have never directly seen the sun until that day. I watched the hypnotic sky turn from orange to purple to black. I then faced ahead to see a white plain stretch to the horizon. The blue moonlight made the snow reflect it, one eye haven after another. I walked 18 hours a day, using small glaciers as sleds on hills, fed on the berries of Arctic plants, and made igloos to sleep in. 3 days later, I found a cave and approached it. A white figure appeared and growled. The polar bear charged at me. I made the mistake of trespassing and now must fight for my life. It swung its 5 claws. I jumped back and sidestepped a second swing. 10 seconds later, I learned its attack pattern and struck its stomach. It groaned in pain. Then lunged its teeth to me. I grabbed the ears to pull myself over the head, barely avoiding the teeth. I kicked the back of the head while jumping off. It flung an arm as it spun. I can't dodge in midair, so I tried to block. I was back-pawed and flew across the cave, smashing against the uneven, rocky walls. My breath knocked out of my lungs, which slowed my dodge for its claws. 3 red, moist lines appeared on my right chest, luckily shallow. I punched its throat, and as it stunned and choked on the impact, I threw a 30-pound rock at its head and knocked it out. I sat on a rock, panting. My left forearm bone fractured. My right ribs fractured. 3 large cuts on my right chest, and I was covered in bruises. I stood up to see a dark hole in the back of the cave. I looked in and saw a very faint glow from below, barely visible even for night vision sight. I climbed down it. 100 feet down, I heard the bear moan. For every 100 feet, the glow would be slightly brighter. 2 hours later, I found the bottom of the hole, and there's a huge cave. Lava seeped through a wall, and a waterfall 50 feet above the lava. It was a humid place. A water pool was 100 feet directly under me. With nothing to climb down with, I simply had to let go and fall. I exhaled just before impact, to not injure my lungs again, as to land on my left side, but I was too horizontal, and the water slap almost made me cry. I swam out of the water and lied down. A giant red bruise formed on my left torso, and my whole body was pink from burns of the 140-degree water. I saw another cave that led down, not a hole like last time, but a descending path. The further I walked, the darker. I picked up a rock and smacked the wall every 20 seconds when it became too dark to see. Between 6-hour rests, I walked in blackness. I got used to having to see with my ears. The differing vibrations from the rock saved me from a few nasty falls. After 45 hours of being in there, I see a very subtle blue glow. 30 minutes later, it was just bright enough to watch my steps. Relieved to finally stop banging against the wall, I ran toward the light. An hour later, I make it out of the cave. I found a fruit tree to cure my famine, and a sand spot to fix my fatigue. After a 12-hour sleep, I set out on my journey. I've explored every form of nature's landscapes, between arid deserts to Arctic deserts, and from rainforest to rugged terrain, from villages to metropolis. I've explored many cultures. I've sailed through vast oceans through hard training. I could win fights against lions and strong soldiers. I was unarmed and gave no scars. I explored every continent and island very thoroughly by the time I was 15 and a half. I was walking through serene green hills when I discovered a glass and metal tube stretching in the sky beyond human vision. As I ventured to the structure, I was greeted by a young, pretty woman, Tasoya. "Hello, wanderer. Visitors are rare." I asked about this place. "This is a place where the oldest and wisest civilization chose to visit this planet. A place where natives are least likely to find this station, in the middle of thousands of miles of empty hills. We keep our technology and identity to ourselves to not interrupt other cultures. I live here to watch over this station. Only true explorers can find this place. As a reward, you may use the shuttle to explore the neighboring planet." I thanked her and took a look. The tube is exactly 40 feet in diameter, with 2 shuttles parked in it. I sat in one and pressed a start button. The vehicle began to accelerate up the metal tracks. I looked through the glass walls to see the hills become speck patterns and the clouds become a quickly descending plane. I crossed the blue border, exiting Earth. I saw colorful dots in every direction, crescent light contrasts on every planet as well as moons. Red and blue lines appeared and disappeared instantly. There were groups of dots forming bright ovals and other dots by themselves. I could see it all through the clear shuttle and tube. Words can't describe my amazement and imagination, can't fully grasp the beauty of outer space. The planets constantly orbit the sun, which changes the distance between them likewise. However, the tube I was riding in stayed connected to both planets. Somehow it is elastic enough to endure even the planet's greatest distances. Glass and metal is the closest I can describe, but it is greatly warped. 24 hours later, I enter the other planet. It looked much like exiting the previous planet, only reversed. I stepped out of the shuttle as it landed and began my journey. The planet's climate and landscapes were much like Earth. The species there were similar too, with only little differences. I saw what looked like a cat half my size with a dog mouth, a dog with a cat mouth, and a fifth leg attached to what was probably its chest. I've seen trees with purple wood and blue leaves. There are many more odd versions of Terra creatures, but it will take too long to describe. The human civilizations from village to metropolis were similar to Earth settlements too. Of course, they had different religions, languages, and food. Their deity descriptions had different names and appearances, but just like on Earth, they valued treating others as you wish to be treated and meditation. When I first met them, I couldn't understand their tongue, so one of them gave me an invisible translation helmet. The device reads your thoughts and voices the intended meaning to whatever language the other person speaks. You have to want it to work, though. If you want your thoughts to be private, the device reads that desire and stays quiet. 55 months later, after exploring every landmass of the planet, I decided to return to Earth in the glass shuttle. As I was heading to the shuttle, I take a last look of the people. There was all the same ethnicities as on Earth: dark brown, brown, Caucasian, Oriental, etc. But some of them had natural blue, green, and purple hair, no dyes. I step into the shuttle and head to Earth. The next day, now on Earth, I run to the direction of home. I am athletic to run 30 miles per hour for 540 miles straight. 5 days later, I make it home. The place was undisturbed. I lived there until my 20th birthday. On that day, I had a sudden realization that I was living in a simulation. I sat meditatively and concentrated. I awoke, memories returned, and I have successfully healed myself with that haven. I have 96 years of experience now and gained a new appreciation for everything. With this power, paper notes and reminders are obsolete. I carefully studied math, Japanese, and Spanish, then grew up with them in another 20-year life. I became a trilingual mathematician overnight. In the next one, I had to grow up in a zombie apocalypse, a robot apocalypse, and an alien invasion. I had to work with many unpredictable people, too. I awoke with better weapon skills, more brave, and more resourceful. Mentally, I am now 136 years old. My next simulation will be a little different. I slept. I found myself in a black, endless space. I could see my hands just fine, but I was in pure blackness with no gravity. I could move my limbs, but could not travel or speak. Soon, a giant gray skeleton appears in front of me. I was only the size as one of its fingernails. Its eye sockets were darker than black, just as infinite as the space around us, and carried more hatred than all humans combined could possibly build up. The stare itself could destroy anyone's spirits or courage. It carried a fire sword just as massive as itself. That gray skeleton struck me with the fire sword. Physically, it felt like getting dropped in a 1,000-degree oven, electric nails hammering in all of my pressure points and getting torn up by a Gatling gun, unable to die, times 10,000. Psychologically, it felt like everything in the multiverse, including I, viewed me as the weakest, dumbest, most pathetic, evil piece of crap that will ever exist, times 10,000. That monster struck me with 100% force only once. Just 0.02% of the impact could drive the average healthy man to suicide. With my superior endurance, my mind divided the suffering into 100 pieces, sorting through 1% of the impact at a time. Time and emotion was irrelevant. My robotic state dissolved all the pain eventually. The gray skeleton faded, and in its place appeared a color-changing blob, just as massive. It sent a beam of light to me. Physically, it felt like a full-body spa massage with purified organ health and a soothing, orgasmic electric flow all throughout me, times 10,000. Psychologically, it felt like the whole multiverse, including I, viewed me as a strong, beautiful, honorable, and worthy friend to nature, times 10,000. The equilibrium gave me a transcendence of peace and balance, allowing me to grasp the essence of Tao. I awoke and became a Zen master that night. To experience the two extremes while keeping unwavering morals gave superior judgment to me. The next simulation was me, a ruler of a nation with all economic, international, and civil civil obstacles a nation could possibly have. I eventually had the strongest military, strongest economy, happiest, healthiest, and most friendly citizens. My next simulation, I fell in love with a hot, athletic woman and had 10 kids, 5 boys and 5 girls. And we had every romantic and parental problems a family could possibly have. Eventually, my wife was the happiest, friendliest, and toughest woman ever. My children were all greatly healthy, friendly, and most honorable martial artists. They all were. As life continued and my mental age rose ever more, I was able to live a life to the fullest and beyond. I can safely conclude that wise, stupid, good, evil, cool, and lame are just mere measurements people like to make to compare things. Everything is constantly changing. Everything is an experience. Everything is a cycle. Be at peace with all things, for all is one. And that's it. That's all the storage I have. See you later.